The stars looked the same as they always had. But Captain Jake Morrison knew everything was about to change. His ship, the Horizon, drifted quietly through space near a distant star system. They were on a routine survey mission, charting new territories and looking for resources. It was supposed to be boring work. Instead, Jake's communication officer suddenly turned pale and called him to the bridge. "Captain, you need to see this," she said. The message came from nowhere. One moment, space was empty. The next, a massive alien vessel appeared on their sensors. It was bigger than anything humanity had ever built. The ship didn't attack. It just sat there waiting. Then it sent a transmission. Jake watched the screen as an alien face appeared. The creature had 4 eyes arranged in a square pattern on its face. Its skin was pale blue and covered in small ridges. When it spoke, a computer translated its words into English. "Human vessel, you will relay this message to your leadership. This is not a request." The alien introduced himself as Ambassador Veltharn of the Krillian Empire, representative of something called the Galactic Council. Jake listened as the ambassador explained that Earth had been watched for decades. The Council knew everything about humanity. They knew about human wars, human violence, and human expansion into space, and they had made a decision. "Humanity is too dangerous to join galactic civilization," Veltharn said. His 4 eyes didn't blink. "You fight among yourselves constantly. You destroy your own planet for profit. You create weapons capable of ending all life on your world, and you've nearly used them multiple times. The Council has voted. Earth must be contained." Jake felt his hands grip the armrests of his chair. He wanted to argue, to defend humanity, but something told him to stay quiet and listen. The ambassador continued. "Your species will surrender all weapons of war. You will accept Council observers on your planet. You will remain in your home system and not expand further into space. These terms are not negotiable. You have 30 standard days to comply." "And if we refuse?" Jake asked quietly. Veltharn's expression didn't change. "Then the Council will enforce compliance through corrective action. Resistance will be met with overwhelming force. Your cities will burn. Your military will be destroyed. Your civilization will be reduced to a state where you can no longer threaten galactic peace. Choose wisely, Captain. Inform your leaders." The transmission ended. The alien ship vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Jake sat in silence for a long moment, then ordered his crew to set course for Earth. This message needed to be delivered in person. 3 days later, the Horizon docked at Earth's primary space station. Jake was immediately escorted to a secure conference room where Earth's military and political leaders had gathered. Admiral Lisa Grant sat at the head of the table. She was a tall woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She had commanded Earth's defenses through 2 major conflicts and was known for never losing her composure. Jake delivered his report. He played the recording of Ambassador Veltharn's message. The room fell silent as the alien's demands echoed through the speakers. When the message ended, several politicians began talking at once. Some wanted to negotiate. Others suggested immediate military preparation. A few even argued that surrender might be the logical choice. Admiral Grant raised her hand and the room fell silent. "How many ships does this council have?" she asked. An intelligence officer stood up. "Based on the data we've collected from long-range observations, we estimate they have tens of thousands of warships. Maybe more. They represent 47 different alien species. Some of them have been spacefaring for thousands of years." "And how many ships do we have?" Grant asked. 89 combat-ready vessels, Admiral. Another 30 in construction." The room fell silent again. The math was clear. If the Council wanted to destroy Earth, they probably could. But Admiral Grant didn't look worried. Instead, she looked thoughtful. "Set up a response channel," she said. "I want to speak with this ambassador directly." 2 hours later, the communication link was established. Ambassador Veltharn's face appeared on the screen. His 4 eyes focused on Admiral Grant. "Admiral Grant," he said, "I trust you have considered our offer. Will Earth accept the Council's generous terms?" Grant leaned forward slightly. "Ambassador, I've reviewed your demands. I've consulted with our leadership, and I have an answer for you." Veltharn's eyes seemed to brighten. "The Council will be pleased that humanity has chosen reason over—" "No," Grant said simply. The ambassador stopped mid-sentence. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" "I said no. We respectfully decline your offer." Grant's voice was calm, almost friendly. "We appreciate that you took the time to visit our system and deliver your message. But we won't be surrendering our weapons. accepting your observers, or limiting our expansion into space. We're going to continue doing what we've been doing. You're welcome to try to stop us if you want, but we won't make it easy." Veltharn's face showed something that might have been confusion. "Admiral, perhaps you don't understand. The Council has never had a species refuse our terms. The consequences of defiance are severe. We have the power to destroy your entire civilization." Grant smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile, but it wasn't hostile either. It was the smile of someone who knew something the other person didn't. "Ambassador, let me tell you something about humans. We've been fighting since we climbed down from the trees. We fought each other. We fought nature, we fought diseases and disasters and everything else this universe has thrown at us. And we're still here. You're not the first bully to threaten us, and you won't be the last. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to go back to your council and tell them that Earth said no, and then we'll see what happens next." Veltharn's 4 eyes narrowed. "You're making a terrible mistake." "Maybe," Grant said. "But it's our mistake to make. Goodbye, Ambassador." She ended the transmission before he could respond. The room erupted in discussion. Some people were excited. Others were terrified. But Admiral Grant just sat back in her chair and smiled that same knowing smile. "Get me a meeting with all military commanders," she said quietly. "We've got work to do." Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council received Earth's response with shock and disbelief. In 10,000 years of galactic governance, no species had ever simply said no. They had no protocol for this situation. Ambassador Veltharn stood before the council and delivered his report. "The humans have refused," he said. They showed no fear. Their military commander actually smiled when delivering their rejection. The council chamber filled with the sounds of 47 different species expressing confusion and outrage. Finally, the council's senior member spoke. "Then we will teach them to fear. Prepare the demonstration fleet." Commander Pete Davidson stood on the observation deck of Luna Base and watched Earth turn slowly below. It had been 5 days since Admiral Grant had refused the Council's demands. Pete expected panic. He expected emergency drills and rushed military preparations. Instead, everything seemed almost normal. "It's weird," his second-in-command said, floating up beside him in the low gravity. "We're supposed to be at war, but nobody's acting like it." Pete nodded. He'd noticed the same thing. Yes, they'd moved some satellites into new positions. Yes, they'd reinforced a few orbital platforms. But there were no massive troop movements, no emergency broadcasts, no visible signs of preparation for invasion. It was like Earth had collectively shrugged at the threat. He pulled up his personal tablet and checked the news feeds. The top story wasn't about the alien threat. It was about a football game. The second story was a debate about tax policy. The alien ultimatum was mentioned in the third story, but only briefly. The reporter talked about it like it was just another piece of news, nothing special. Pete scrolled through social media and found something even stranger. People were making jokes. Someone had created a cartoon of Ambassador Veltharn with all 4 eyes crossed, looking confused. The caption read, "When you threaten humanity and they say no thanks." It had been shared millions of times. Another popular post showed a picture of Admiral Grant smiling, with the text, "That moment when you politely decline galactic domination." People were treating the whole thing like it was funny. "Are they crazy?" Pete's second-in-command asked. "Don't they understand we could all die?" Pete thought about it. "I think they understand. They just don't care the way the aliens expect them to care." Far across the galaxy, Council Intelligence Officer Sarquin was having the same thought. He'd been assigned to monitor Earth's communications after their refusal. His job was to assess their military preparations and report any weaknesses. Instead, he found himself completely baffled by what he was seeing. Humans were going about their normal lives. Children still went to school. Adults still went to work. Scientists continued their research projects. Musicians released new songs, some of them about defying the Council. One song called "We Said No" had become incredibly popular. Sarquin listened to it and couldn't understand why humans would celebrate their own potential destruction. He compiled his report and sent it to Ambassador Veltharn. "The humans show no signs of fear," he wrote. "They appear to be treating our ultimatum as a minor inconvenience. Recommend immediate demonstration of power to correct this misunderstanding." The Council agreed. If humans didn't understand the threat, they would be shown. A fleet of 200 warships was assembled, drawn from a dozen different Council species. It was meant to be overwhelming, a display that would make Earth realize their mistake. The fleet jumped into Earth's solar system 20 days after the ultimatum was delivered. They positioned themselves just beyond Mars, in clear view of Earth's telescopes and sensors. The message they broadcast was simple and direct. People of Earth, you see our strength. We are 200 warships representing the united power of the Galactic Council. Surrender now, or we will demonstrate what happens to those who defy us. You have 1 hour to respond. On Freedom Station, an orbital defense platform circling Earth, Lieutenant Kelly Barnes received the alert. She'd been on duty when the Council fleet appeared. She watched them on her sensors, counted their ships, and then checked her orders. The orders had been uploaded to her system 3 days ago. They were simple. When the Council fleet arrives, execute Defense Protocol 7. Fire when ready. Kelly had read those orders a dozen times, trying to understand what they meant. Defense Protocol 7 wasn't something she recognized from her training. She'd had to look it up in the classified database. What she found made her grin. She entered her authorization code and activated the protocol. All stations, this is Freedom Station. Executing Defense Protocol 7. Stand by. Around the Council fleet, space suddenly came alive. Thousands of objects that had been floating in the asteroid belt, disguised as rocks and debris, activated simultaneously. They were mines, automated defense drones, and weapon platforms. Humanity had been seeding them throughout the solar system for the past 5 days. The Council ships detected the activation, but they were too slow to react. The first wave of mines detonated, creating electromagnetic pulses that disabled shield generators. The second wave followed immediately, targeting engines and weapon systems. Automated drones swarmed around the larger Council warships, too small and numerous to target effectively. Kelly watched her screen as the battle unfolded. It wasn't really a battle. It was an ambush. The Council ships tried to return fire, but they couldn't get a clear shot. Their sensors were being jammed. Their shields were down. Their formation was broken. 90 seconds after the first mine activated, 40 Council ships were disabled or destroyed. The rest were retreating, jumping out of the system in chaotic disorder. Kelly counted the casualties on her screen and felt a mix of pride and sadness. Humans had won, but a lot of aliens had just died. She opened a communication channel to Earth Defense Command. This is Freedom Station. Protocol 7 executed successfully. Enemy fleet is retreating. Minimal damage to our platforms. Admiral Grant's voice came through the speaker. Good work, Lieutenant. Stand down to alert status and monitor for their return. Yes, ma'am, Kelly said. Then she added, Admiral, did you know they would come? There was a pause. We hoped they would, Grant said. We needed to show them that we meant what we said. Now they know. The Council's emergency session was chaotic. Representatives from 47 species were all talking at once, demanding explanations. How had a primitive species defeated their demonstration fleet? How had Earth known they were coming? What other surprises did humanity have waiting? Ambassador Veltharn tried to restore order, but his authority was crumbling. The species whose ships had been destroyed were demanding action. Others were calling for caution. A few were even suggesting that maybe they should leave Earth alone. We need more information, one representative said. We need to understand how humans think. Why they fight when surrender is logical. The Council agreed. They would study humanity more carefully, and they made another decision. They would take a human for questioning, to understand what made these creatures so different from every other species in the galaxy. Dr. Aaron Mitchell was a history professor at a university in California. He specialized in military history, particularly wars where smaller forces had defeated larger ones. He was in his office grading papers when his door suddenly opened and 2 creatures in strange suits entered. They didn't hurt him. They just told him he was needed for questioning by the Galactic Council. Before Aaron could argue, they teleported him directly to a Council ship. He found himself in a white room, sitting across from an alien with too many arms and eyes that glowed slightly in the dim light. The alien introduced itself as a Council investigator. We want to understand, the alien said. Why did Earth refuse our offer? Surrender would have saved lives. Resistance only brings death. Aaron leaned back in his chair. He wasn't scared. He was actually a little excited. This was a chance to explain something he'd spent his whole career studying. You don't understand humans, he said. You think we refused because we're stupid or crazy. But we refused because surrender isn't in our nature. Let me tell you some stories. He told them about the Spartans at Thermopylae, holding off a massive Persian army. He told them about Vietnam, where a smaller force fought the most powerful military on Earth to a standstill. He told them about Afghanistan, where every empire that tried to conquer it eventually gave up. The alien listened, growing more confused with each story. But these forces lost, it said. Many of them were destroyed. How is this a success? Aaron smiled. That's what you don't get. We don't measure success by winning. We measure it by whether we fought on our own terms. Those Spartans died, but they're remembered as heroes. The Vietnamese won. The Afghans outlasted everyone. Humans would rather die fighting than live under someone else's control. That's not a bug in our system. It's a feature. The alien was silent for a long time. Finally, it spoke again. You're saying humans are willing to die for pride? No, Aaron said. We're willing to die for freedom. There's a difference. Dr. Aaron Mitchell had been on the council ship for 3 days. They kept asking him questions about human behavior, human history, and human military tactics. He answered honestly, even enthusiastically. He was a teacher at heart, and he loved explaining things. But he noticed that the aliens didn't really understand what he was telling them. They would nod their various heads and make notes, but their questions kept coming back to the same basic confusion. Why would humans fight when fighting was illogical? On the 3rd day, a different alien came to question him. This one was smaller, with delicate features and skin that shifted colors based on its mood. It introduced itself as a council military strategist. I've read your interviews, it said. I've studied the battles you described. But I still don't understand. In every example you gave, the humans suffered terrible losses. Many of them died. How can you call this success? Aaron thought about how to explain it. Let me ask you a question, he said. In galactic wars, how do you decide when to surrender? The alien's skin shifted to a pale blue, which Aaron had learned meant it was thinking. We calculate probable losses. If our chance of victory falls below 20% and our projected casualties exceed 40%, surrender becomes the logical choice. Why sacrifice more lives for a battle already lost? That makes sense, Aaron said. It's rational. It's smart. But humans don't think like that. He stood up and started pacing. The guards tensed, but he ignored them. Let me tell you about a city called Stalingrad. It was during a war on Earth about 80 years ago. One army surrounded the city and tried to capture it. By your logic, the defenders should have surrendered. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded. Their chance of victory was basically zero. But they didn't surrender? The alien asked. Not only did they not surrender, they fought for every single building, every room, every staircase. The battle lasted for months. Both sides lost hundreds of thousands of soldiers. The city was completely destroyed. But in the end, the defenders won. The attackers had to retreat. The alien's skin turned a dark purple, which meant it was disturbed. That's horrifying. So many deaths for one city. That's the point, Aaron said. The defenders decided that holding that city was worth any price. They didn't calculate odds. They didn't consider surrender. They just fought. And because they fought so hard, they won. He sat back down. That's what you're up against with humanity. We don't surrender when the math says we should. We fight until we win or until we're all dead. And sometimes, just sometimes, refusing to lose is enough to win. While Aaron was teaching the council about human stubbornness, Dr. Sophie Williams was making a breakthrough that would change everything. Sophie worked at CERN, the particle physics laboratory in Switzerland. She'd been studying the data collected from the Council's demonstration fleet before it was destroyed. The Council ships used energy shields for protection. These shields were incredibly advanced, far beyond anything humanity could build. But Sophie noticed something interesting in the sensor data. The shields had a specific frequency pattern, and that pattern had a weakness. She ran the calculations 3 times to make sure. Then she called Admiral Grant. Admiral, I think I found something important, she said when the call connected. The Council's shield technology has a vulnerability. If we hit it with a specific type of pulse, the shields will collapse for about 2 seconds. That's not much time, but it might be enough. Grant was quiet for a moment. Can you weaponize this? Already working on it, Sophie said. I've sent the specifications to our weapons labs. They should be able to retrofit our existing missiles within a week. Do it, Grant said. And Sophie, don't tell anyone outside of secure channels. This stays classified. Sophie agreed and ended the call. She didn't realize that her discovery would be used much sooner than anyone expected. The Council was still debating what to do about Earth. Some members wanted to launch a full invasion immediately. Others argued for a blockade, cutting Earth off from the rest of the galaxy until they agreed to surrender. A few suggested just leaving humanity alone. Ambassador Veltharn had lost much of his influence after the failed demonstration, but he stood before the Council and made his case. "We cannot allow this defiance to stand," he said. "If Earth refuses our authority and suffers no consequences, other species will follow their example. Our entire system of governance will collapse. We must act, and we must act decisively." The Council voted. It wasn't unanimous, but the majority agreed. They would send a battle fleet to Earth. Not a demonstration force this time, but a real military invasion. Over 2,000 warships would jump to Earth's system and demand surrender. If humanity refused again, the fleet would begin orbital bombardment of military targets. If that didn't work, they would target cities. It was the largest military operation the Council had launched in over 1,000 years. Ships were pulled from patrol routes across the galaxy. Crews were briefed. Weapons were prepared. The Council was confident that this time, Earth would understand the futility of resistance. They were wrong. Back on Earth, Admiral Grant was coordinating the defense. She knew the Council would come back. The only question was when and with how many ships. Intelligence reports suggested a large fleet was being assembled, but the exact numbers were unclear. She called a meeting of Earth's top military commanders. They gathered in a secure bunker deep beneath the Pentagon. The mood was tense but focused. "They're coming," Grant said without preamble. "We don't know exactly when, but it will be soon. And it will be big. Bigger than anything we've faced before." "How big?" someone asked. "Best estimate, 2,000 ships or more." The room fell silent. 2,000 ships against Earth's 89 combat vessels and some orbital defenses. The math was brutal, but Admiral Grant wasn't done talking. "We can't beat them in a straight fight. We all know that. But we don't need to beat them. We just need to make them quit, and I think I know how." She activated a holographic display showing the solar system. The Council thinks in terms of formal battle. Ships line up, they exchange fire, someone wins. That's not how we're going to fight. We're going to make this messy, confusing, and expensive for them. She outlined her plan. Earth ships wouldn't engage in direct combat. Instead, they would use hit-and-run tactics, false sensor signatures, and automated weapons platforms. They would make the Council fleet chase them through asteroid fields and debris. They would sacrifice unmanned drones to create chaos. "We're going to fight like guerrillas," Grant said. "We're going to make every inch of this solar system cost them. And we're going to use Dr. Williams's discovery about their shields. Every ship gets the new weapons. When we hit them hard." One of the commanders raised his hand. "Admiral, even with all this, we're going to take casualties. Heavy casualties. Are we sure this is worth it?" Grant looked around the room. "That's not for me to decide alone. That's for all of humanity to decide. We can still surrender. The Council might still accept it. We'd lose our freedom, but we'd survive." She paused. "But I've been getting messages from people all over the planet. You know what they're saying? They're saying fight. Teachers, doctors, factory workers, kids in school, they all say the same thing. Don't surrender. Don't give up, fight." Another commander spoke up. "My daughter asked me yesterday if we were going to lose. I told her I didn't know. She said it didn't matter as long as we didn't quit. She's 8 years old and she understands what's at stake." Around the table, heads nodded. They all had similar stories. Humanity had made its choice, even if that choice might lead to destruction. "Then we fight," Grant said. "Not because we're sure we can win, but because we're sure we can't live on our knees." "Dismissed. Get your people ready." The commanders left to prepare their forces. Admiral Grant stayed behind, looking at the holographic display of Earth. It was a beautiful planet, blue and green and full of life. She'd spent her entire career protecting it. Now she was about to gamble it all on the belief that sometimes refusing to lose was enough. Across the galaxy, the Council fleet made final preparations for departure. Ambassador Veltharn inspected the flagship, a massive vessel armed with enough firepower to level continents. He was confident. This time Earth would learn its lesson. He had no idea that humanity's real lesson was about to be taught to the galaxy. Colonel Danny Brooks stood on the bridge of the Defiant, Earth's newest warship. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. They'd been at high alert for 6 hours, waiting for the Council fleet to arrive. Intelligence suggested today was the day. Danny was 42 years old and had spent half his life in space. He'd commanded cargo haulers, research vessels, and finally military ships. He'd never imagined he'd be preparing to fight an alien armada. Life was strange that way. "Sir, we're detecting multiple jump signatures," his sensor officer called out. "Lots of them. How many?" Danny asked. The officer's face went pale. 2,143 ships, sir. They're arranging themselves in attack formation." Danny felt his stomach drop, but he kept his voice steady. "Send the alert to all Earth forces. The party has started." The Council fleet spread across space like a metal storm. Their ships ranged from small fighters to massive battlecruisers. They moved with practiced precision, forming ranks that had been perfected over thousands of years of warfare. From the flagship, Ambassador Veltharn broadcast a message to Earth. "People of Earth, you see our power. This is your final opportunity to surrender. Agree to our terms and no blood will be spilled. Refuse and we will begin bombardment of your military installations. You have 1 hour to decide." On Earth, Admiral Grant received the message. She looked at the sensor data showing the massive fleet, then at the faces of her staff officers. They all looked nervous. She couldn't blame them. "Send our response," she said. The communication officer opened a channel. Grant's face appeared on every Council ship simultaneously. She looked tired but determined. "Ambassador Veltharn, this is Admiral Grant. Thank you for the offer, but our answer remains no. We will not surrender. We will not submit. If you want to take Earth, you'll have to fight for every inch, and I promise you it won't be worth the cost." She paused, then added, "Oh, and one more thing. Welcome to our solar system. I hope you enjoy your stay." The transmission ended. Veltharn stared at the screen in disbelief. They were really going to fight. He gave the order. "All ships advance. Begin the attack." The Council fleet moved forward in perfect formation. They expected Earth ships to meet them in traditional battle lines. Instead, what happened next confused them completely. Earth's 89 combat ships scattered in every direction. They didn't form up. They didn't create a defensive line. They just ran. "They're retreating," one of Veltharn's officers said. "Should we pursue?" "Of course," Veltharn said. "They're showing their cowardice. Chase them down." The Council fleet broke formation to pursue the fleeing Earth ships. That was exactly what Admiral Grant wanted. Colonel Danny Brooks watched his sensors as 3 Council cruisers chased his ship toward the asteroid belt. The Defiant was faster than the alien ships, but Danny deliberately kept his speed down. He wanted them to follow. "Sir, they're gaining on us," his pilot said. "Good," Danny replied. "Bring us into the belt at heading 270. The Defiant plunged into the asteroid field with the 3 Council ships close behind. What the aliens didn't know was that Earth had seeded this entire section of the belt with automated weapons platforms disguised as rocks. When the Council ships entered the field, the platforms activated. Hundreds of missiles launched simultaneously from every direction. The Council ships tried to raise shields, but the missiles were equipped with Sophie Williams's shield disruption technology. The shields flickered and died. 2 of the 3 Council cruisers were destroyed in the first salvo. The third managed to retreat, but it was badly damaged. The same scene played out across the solar system. Earth ships led Council vessels into ambushes, minefields, and kill zones. The aliens expected traditional combat. Instead, they got chaos. Captain Nora Jensen commanded the destroyer Relentless. She'd been given a particularly dangerous mission, and she was ready. Her ship drifted silently through space with all power systems shut down. She looked dead, just another piece of debris. A Council formation of 12 ships passed within 2 kilometers of her position. They didn't even scan her. Why would they? She was obviously a derelict. "Now," Nora whispered. Her crew activated emergency power and fired every weapon the Relentless carried at point-blank range. Torpedoes, missiles, railguns, everything. 7 Council ships exploded before they knew what hit them. The others scattered in panic. Nora's ship used emergency thrusters to escape, boosting away before the Council ships could respond. By the time they realized what happened, the Relentless was gone. "That's for threatening my planet," Nora said quietly. The Council fleet was in disarray. They'd lost over 400 ships in the first 2 hours, and they hadn't destroyed a single Earth vessel. Their perfect formations were broken. Their ships were scattered across the solar system, chasing ghosts. Ambassador Veltharn couldn't believe what was happening. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "Where are they hiding?" His tactical officer looked terrified. "Sir, they're everywhere and nowhere. They use false sensor signatures to make us think there are ships where there aren't any. They hide in asteroid fields and debris. They shut down their power and drift like dead hulks. Our sensors can't distinguish them from actual debris." "Then use visual scanning," Veltharn ordered. "Sir, space is too big. We'd need to visually inspect billions of objects. And they move when we're not looking." Veltharn felt something he'd never experienced in 40 years of military service. He felt afraid. The battle continued for 6 more hours. It wasn't really a battle in the traditional sense. It was a nightmare. Council ships were picked off in small groups. Automated drones swarmed larger vessels. Mines appeared in supposedly clear space. Nothing was predictable. One council admiral tried to rally his forces and establish a defensive perimeter around Mars. He gathered 80 ships in a tight formation, shields overlapping for mutual protection. Earth's response was to crash an unmanned cargo vessel into the formation at near light speed. The explosion destroyed 23 ships and damaged 40 more. By the 8th hour, the Council fleet had lost over 60% of its ships. Veltharn sat on the bridge of his flagship, watching the casualty reports scroll across his screen. 1,200 ships gone, and Earth had lost only 9 vessels, all of them unmanned drones. "Sir," his communication officer said quietly, "we're receiving withdrawal requests from multiple species. They're saying the cost is too high." Veltharn wanted to argue, but he knew it was over. They couldn't win this. Not because Earth was stronger, but because Earth was willing to fight in ways the Council never imagined. "Signal all ships," he said. His voice was hollow. "Retreat from the system. Regroup at the rally point." The surviving Council ships jumped away, leaving behind wreckage and bodies. The invasion was over. On Earth, celebrations erupted. People poured into the streets, cheering and crying. They'd done it. Against impossible odds, they'd defended their home. But Admiral Grant didn't celebrate. She stood in the command center, looking at the casualty reports. Earth had lost 93 people, all volunteers who'd piloted the kamikaze drones. The Council had lost over 40,000. She felt sick. Yes, they'd won. But at what cost to the galaxy? Her communication officer interrupted her thoughts. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Council flagship." Grant straightened. "Put it through." Ambassador Veltharn appeared on the screen. He looked defeated, his 4 eyes dim. "Admiral Grant, the Council fleet is withdrawing. But this isn't over. We will return." Grant shook her head. "No, Ambassador, you won't. Because if you come back, we'll do this again. And again. And again. We'll keep fighting until either we're all dead or you give up. Those are your only options. You're willing to die for this?" Veltharn asked. "We're willing to die free," Grant said. "There's a difference." Veltharn was silent for a long moment. "I don't understand you," he finally said. "I know," Grant replied. "That's why you lost." She ended the transmission and sat down heavily. Her staff watched her, waiting for orders. "Send a message to the Council," she said. "Tell them we're willing to talk. Not about surrender. About peace. Real peace between equals. If they're interested, we'll meet them halfway." The message was sent, and across the galaxy, the Council faced a choice they'd never had to make before. For the first time in 10,000 years, they had to decide whether to negotiate with someone who'd beaten them. The old order was dying. Something new was being born, and nobody knew exactly what it would look like. 3 months had passed since the battle. The wreckage had been cleared from Earth's solar system, and the dead had been mourned. Now it was time to see if peace was possible. President Nathan Hayes stood in the observation deck of Diplomatic Station, a new facility built specifically for the upcoming negotiations. It orbited Earth at a high altitude, visible from the surface as a bright point of light in the evening sky. Nathan had been president for 6 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. "Sir, the Council delegation has arrived," his aide said. Nathan nodded and straightened his suit. "Let's not keep them waiting." The Council had sent a new ambassador. Veltharn had been removed from his position after the failed invasion. The new representative was a being called Quilnar, from a species known for diplomacy rather than military might. Quilnar was tall and thin, with skin that glowed softly in different colors depending on emotion. When Nathan entered the conference room, Quilnar stood and bowed slightly. It was a gesture of respect, something the old council would never have done. President Hayes, Quilnar said. The translator made the alien's voice sound gentle, almost musical. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. Thank you for coming, Nathan replied. Please sit. They sat across from each other at a simple table. No armies, no weapons, no threats. Just two beings trying to find a way forward. Quilnar was silent for a moment, as if gathering thoughts. Then the alien spoke. I have been asked to convey the Council's regrets for our actions. We approached your species with arrogance and paid a terrible price for it. We lost many ships and many lives, but you also suffered losses. We did, Nathan agreed. 93 volunteers died defending our freedom. We'll never forget them. I need to understand something, Quilnar said. The alien's skin shifted to a deep blue, indicating confusion. We offered you a chance to survive without war. Yes, you would have lost some freedoms, but you would have lived. Why choose to fight? Why risk everything? Nathan had known this question would come. He'd spent days thinking about how to answer it. Finally, he decided to tell a story. Let me tell you about my grandfather, Nathan said. He fought in a war on Earth when he was young. His unit was surrounded by enemy forces. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and running out of supplies. Their commander received an order to surrender. You know what my grandfather did? Quilnar shook their head. He tore up the surrender order and told his troops to keep fighting. They held their position for 3 more days until reinforcements arrived. When asked why he didn't surrender, my grandfather said something I've never forgotten. He said, some things are worth more than survival. Dignity is one of them. Freedom is another. Nathan leaned forward. That's what you don't understand about humans. We're not afraid of death. We're afraid of living without meaning. We're afraid of being slaves, even comfortable slaves. We'd rather die on our feet than live on our knees. Quilnar's skin shifted through several colors, finally settling on a pale green that the humans had learned meant acceptance. I think I'm beginning to understand. But it seems so inefficient. So many dead for an abstract concept. Freedom isn't abstract to us, Nathan said. It's as real as air or water. Without it, we suffocate. With it, we can endure anything. They talked for hours. Quilnar asked questions about human history, human culture, and human values. Nathan answered honestly, not hiding the darker parts of humanity's past. He told them about wars, genocides, and terrible mistakes. But he also told them about art, music, philosophy, and the endless human drive to improve. Finally, Quilnar asked the question that mattered most. What does Earth want from the galaxy? Nathan had his answer ready. We want what every species wants. We want to be free to live our lives, explore space, and grow as a civilization. We don't want to conquer anyone. We don't want to force our values on others. We just want respect and equal treatment. The Council is prepared to offer that, Quilnar said. We propose a new agreement. Earth will have full sovereignty over your system and any territories you colonize. You will have equal representation on the Council, with the same voting rights as any other species. You will have unrestricted access to galactic trade routes and technology-sharing programs. Nathan was surprised. That's very generous. What do you want in return? Knowledge, Quilnar said simply. We want to learn from you, not your weapons or military tactics. We want to understand your philosophy, your art, your history. We want to know how you became what you are, Nathan smiled. We can do that, but I have one condition. What is that? This agreement applies to all species, not just Earth. If another species refuses to join the Council, you don't threaten them. You negotiate with respect. Can you agree to that? Quilnar was quiet for a long time. Finally, the alien spoke. That would require fundamental changes to how the Council operates. We've governed the galaxy for 10,000 years using our old methods. And how's that working out for you? Nathan asked, gently. Quilnar's skin flashed orange, which meant amusement. Point taken. I'll bring your proposal to the Council. The negotiations continued for another week. There were arguments, compromises, and difficult moments. But slowly an agreement took shape. The Galactic Council would reorganize itself from a ruling body into a cooperative alliance. Species would join voluntarily, not by force. Disputes would be settled through negotiation, not military action. Not all Council members agreed. Some species left the Council entirely, declaring independence. Others fought against the changes. But slowly, the galaxy was transforming. 6 months after the battle, the new agreement was signed. Earth became a full member of the Galactic Council with equal status. The ceremony was held on Diplomatic Station, with representatives from 40 different species present. Admiral Grant stood beside President Hayes as they signed the document. She'd retired from military service the week before, saying she'd done her part. Now she worked as an advisor on alien relations. "Do you think it will last?" Hayes asked her quietly. "I don't know," Grant admitted, "but it's a start. And sometimes a start is all you need." The real changes were happening across the galaxy. On a planet called Tarvos IV, a species known as the Tarvosians watched Earth's story with great interest. They'd been threatened by the Council years ago and had submitted. Now they were reconsidering that decision. Their leader, a being named Court, called a meeting of their government. "Earth showed us something important," Court said. "They showed us that we don't have to accept tyranny. We can demand better." The Tarvosian government voted to renegotiate their relationship with the Council. They wanted the same rights Earth had won. And they weren't alone. Across the galaxy, species were questioning the old order. The Council found itself facing a wave of demands for reform. Some members resisted, but others saw the writing on the wall. The old system of dominance and submission was dying. A new system based on mutual respect was being born. It wasn't easy. There were conflicts, arguments, and setbacks. But slowly, the galaxy was changing for the better. 1 year after the battle, Captain Jake Morrison prepared for his first diplomatic mission. He'd been promoted and given command of the Valiant, Earth's newest exploration vessel. His mission was to travel to the galactic core and establish formal diplomatic relations with species humanity had never met before. As his crew made final preparations for departure, a young ensign named Chris Palmer approached him on the bridge. "Sir, can I ask you something?" Chris said. He looked nervous. "Of course," Jake replied. "Do you think the galaxy is ready for us? For humans?" Jake thought about the question. He thought about the battle, the negotiations, and all the changes that had followed. Finally, he smiled. "I don't know if the galaxy is ready for us," he said, "but I know we're ready for the galaxy. We've proven we can defend ourselves. We've proven we can negotiate. Now we'll prove we can be good neighbors. That's all anyone can ask." Chris nodded, looking reassured. "Yes, sir." Jake turned to his crew. "All stations prepare for departure. Let's show the galaxy what humanity can do when we're not fighting for our lives." The Valiant's engines powered up. The ship lifted away from Diplomatic Station and oriented itself toward the galactic core. On Earth below, billions of people watched the departure on their screens. This was humanity's next chapter. In the captain's quarters, Jake kept a small memorial to the 93 volunteers who died defending Earth. Each one had a name, a face, and a story. They'd sacrificed everything so that humanity could be free. "We won't waste what you gave us," Jake said quietly to the memorial. "I promise." The Valiant jumped to hyperspace carrying humanity's message to the stars. That message was simple but powerful. We are here, we are free, and we're not going anywhere. Behind them, Earth spun peacefully in space, no longer threatened, no longer alone. The planet that had defied the galaxy was now part of it, not as a subject but as an equal. And across the galaxy, the old order continued to crumble. Species that had lived under Council domination for centuries were finding their voices. They were demanding rights, respect, and freedom. The Council tried to adapt. Some members embraced the changes. Others resisted until their own populations forced them to change. It was messy, complicated, and sometimes violent. But it was progress.